Welcome back to Clinic Connect with Dr. Abosede Adegbite. I'm a consultant family physician, and today let's talk about viral infections and school attendance. It is important because it appears that children are healthier when they are on holidays than when they resume school. As soon as they resume school, many of them start sneezing, coughing, and having cold. This may have something to do with they sharing their space with many people. When they were on holidays, they only share their space with family members or maybe their cousins. But when they resume school, they have to share their space with many more people, sometimes as many as 20 or 30 in a class. And because viral infections are highly contagious, if one child has such an infection, as many as half the class can have that infection because they are, like I said, highly contagious. What that translates to is many families having to deal with that same infection and spending resources, time, money, energy to control the infection or to care for that child. So it is important that we help other people by not allowing our children to have any contagious infection to go to school at a particular time when they are infective. Because yes, a child might have an infection, but after a while they can no longer transmit it to other people. Let's talk about a few of these infections. So the very first one is measles. Measles is very contagious, and a child that has measles should not go to school for 4 days after the rash has broken. So when you see the rash and you have identified it as measles, while taking care of that child, do not allow them to go to school for 4 days from the day you see the rash. That is because that is when they are infective. After 4 days, they can no longer transmit the infection to other children. Before the rash develops, they might have had a fever, and you won't know what you were dealing with until you see the rash. So at that time, it can also transmit the infection to other children. That is why children with high fever should not be taken to school. They should be allowed to stay at home. If a child had malaria and you start treating, you will see improvement within 2 days. But if it was measles, you might not see improvement until you now see the rash. So 4 days before and 4 days after the rash, they can transmit the infection to other children, and so we don't want them to be in school at such a period. That is why children with high fever should not be taken to school unless you are sure that it is malaria. You have done a test and it has confirmed that it is malaria. If that child can cope, that child can go to school because they won't transmit that infection, that's malaria, to other children, because that is not how it is transmitted. But for viral infections, it is different. Close contact makes it easy for transmission. Now, let's talk about chickenpox. Chickenpox is another infection that is highly contagious. For chickenpox, you need to keep that child away from others until all the rashes, all the blisters have crusted and they have dried. Once all the rashes have dried, the child can resume school. That usually requires about 5 days for that to happen. So don't let that child go to school for 5 days. What about diarrhea and vomiting? For those that have viral diarrhea, for the sake of that child, they shouldn't even go to school because you need to keep a close eye on them. Pay close attention to them. Be sure that they are well hydrated. Let them stay at home for 48 hours after all their symptoms have subsided. Next is conjunctivitis. Viral conjunctivitis, or what people call Apollo, red eye, is also contagious and can be transmitted from one child to another. But if these children can exercise some caution, then they can still go to school. One of those things is that they don't touch their eyes. Give them that instruction. If they are not touching their eyes and they frequently wash their hands with soap and water, then they can be in school without infecting other children. Also, for mild cough and cold, they can go to school with a mask covering their nose and mouth. This will help to prevent easy transmission to other children. But if they don't have a mask or they cannot tolerate a mask, then tell them to not have close contact with other students and then to sneeze or cough into an handkerchief or tissue and then dispose of the tissue, or cough or sneeze into a flexed elbow. And that's not the time to share bottle, water, cup, and spoon with others. If everyone applies this, fewer children will have to deal with infections and fewer families will have to deal with spending resources to control or to treat infections. These are the few tips that I wanted to give to us, and I hope that we will use them to our advantage and those of our children. Always remember that good health is great wealth. So let's share with everyone so that together we can preserve our health. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week, God willing. Until then, keep the children safe.